Well, it's that time of the year when everything starts to need a bit of a trim up and tidy up after the summer growth. So this time we're starting on the front garden and I'm going to tackle the Wisteria. We're also going to be cutting hedges at the back to get them ready for the autumn, and we're going to show you how to propagate your pelargoniums so you've got some wonderful plants for next year. So we're going to start with the Wisteria, which we're growing up the front of the house. It's been here about 7 or 8 years, and the idea is to bring it up and eventually fill the front of the house. And they can be very vigorous plants, so they do need pruning on an annual basis. In fact, some people suggest pruning them late summer and then again in the winter, but to be fair, I just tend to do it once a year because it means getting the ladder out. So first thing is ladder safety. Make sure it's a good strong ladder and it's firm on the ground, on level ground. And then what I need to do at this time of the year is we can see that it's started to produce these really whippy growths, which is how Wisterias grow. And if we left it, it would just become a tangled mass in just a matter of years. And I want to keep this flat back to the wall. So what we do at this time of the year, late summer into early autumn, is we get all these long shoots like this, and using a sharp pair of secateurs, I'm going to prune them back to 2 or 3 leaf joints. So I'm going to take that one back to about there. So there's 1, 2, 3 leaf joints, and then snip that off. Same with the one above there, 1, 2, 3 leaf joints, cut it just beyond, and down it goes. So it instantly tidies up the plant. Same with this one here. I can lean in and get that one. And then it's basically going over the whole of the plant, trimming off all this long growth, unless you need it to weave in and to thicken it out and to cover more of the wall. And that's it basically, all you do for this time of the year, and then leave it over winter. And if you want to shorten them a bit more, you can, but as I say, I don't bother, I just let them flower. And after a few years' time, this is where it's been pruned in the past, so we can see these are the various points where I've pruned back to. And what happens is you get these short, stubby growths that we call spurs, and it's on the spurs we get the flowers. And these are the remains of the flower stalks from earlier on in the year. You could cut them off if you want to. So hopefully in a year or two's time, now we're doing the pruning higher up on the plant, we'll get lots and lots of flowers there as well. Hedges make really good boundaries in the garden, and you know, they're living, the birds can nest in them, they attract wildlife, but they do need trimming occasionally, and this is getting to the point now where it's ready for a trim and tidy up. And if you leave it until late summer, then they make no growth after that, so it'll keep the shape all the way through the autumn and winter. The other good thing of doing them at this time of the year, of course, is the birds are finished nesting, but if in doubt, always check first. So we're going to give this beech hedge, this is a lovely copper beech or purple beech, it's late summer trim to smarten it up. I'm going to use a cordless hedge trimmer. These are very light with a lithium-ion battery, so very easy to use. So we're going to do that now, but just to make life a little bit easier when it comes to tidying up afterwards, because that's the bit I hate, picking up all the leaves and the trimmings, I'm going to pull in this tarpaulin and just put that underneath the hedge. So that all the clippings will fall in that, then I can just gather it together up and make life much easier. Safety goggles, sunny day, so I'm going to wear tinted ones, I'm going to wear gloves, and then we're off. So we just turn it on and we're away. There, not quite finished because I need to go to the other side to reach across, but it's going to really smarten it up. And what I've done is not cut too hard back. I've basically just tried to cut off the new growth that was sticking out from the hedge, because I wanted to leave this lovely layered effect with the leaves, because they're obviously going to look good right the way through the autumn. They'll go brown in the winter and remain there, and then next spring we get the new growth. So it's important that we keep it looking good and not cut too hard back at this time of the year. The lovely old-fashioned zonal pelargoniums or fancy leaf pelargoniums are getting really popular again, and I love growing a few in the garden. Actually takes me back to when I was an apprentice gardener many years ago, and we used to grow lots and lots of these. The only way that you can propagate these is by cuttings. You can't take seed off the variegated form, so we have to take a short piece of stem and root it. And late summer, early autumn is an ideal time to prepare new plants for next year. I mean, these plants will last for several years if you prune them back and keep them frost free, but it's always nice to have a few new plants coming along. So this is a lovely old Victorian variety called Happy Thought, and this one is an old variety called Frank Headley, lovely variegated. So we're going to take a cutting off this one, and the way to take a cutting is you want a stem of the new growth like that, and what we always do is cut it above a leaf bud so that when I take it off like that, that new shoot will carry on growing and produce more flowers. So that is our basic cutting that we've got there. So first thing is we take off this flower bud. We don't want a flower bud. And then we cut it below this leaf joint. Most cuttings we take just below a leaf joint. Now I use a knife and cut onto my thumb, but if you don't feel happy, use a chopping board and cut downwards. But I've done this for a long time, so I'm happy to do that. But do be careful with sharp knives, whatever you do. We're going to take off these little fleshy pieces we call stipules, and then we're going to turn it over to do this. Snap off this leaf here, and these little fleshy bits here. It's important we take those off because if we leave them on, they'll just rot. And I'm going to take one more leaf off this so that it's got one main leaf and then a little cluster in there. Now, two ways that we can root these. The modern method is to use just very small pots like this, compost in there, just a shallow hole, push our cutting in and firm it so it stands upright. And then when that roots in that small pot, we can move it into a bigger pot. Or the more traditional way, which is the way I was taught to do it, this is a clay pot. They root really well in clay pots because they're porous. I've already prepared 3 cuttings, and then I'm going to put 3 cuttings around the edge of the pot, pushing them in about 1 inch, 2.5 centimetres, evenly round. So just push them in and lightly firm the compost round. We then need to give those a drink of water. They need to be somewhere under cover on a windowsill or a cold greenhouse, and I just put a sheet of newspaper over them so that the sun doesn't frizzle them and dry them out. In 3 weeks' time they'll have rooted from the base. The little one we can pot up straight away into a bigger pot. You can leave the 3 in that pot over winter on a cool windowsill, and then early next spring when they start to grow, take them out, divide them and pot them individually, and then by this time next year you'll have a lovely big plant like this full of beautiful foliage and flowers. Well, thank you for watching, and thank you to Cobra Garden who have supported these gardening videos, and we hope you've enjoyed them. Please like them if you have. Spread the word, tell your friends, because our aim is to make you enjoy gardening by giving you lots of tips and advice. So thank you.